We're all imperfect, and on this podcast, I'll be chatting with a variety of interesting people who are willing to make themselves vulnerable by sharing their own struggles and imperfections.
I was searching so hard. I was like, how am I going to get over this? This was just the worst rolling of a dice ever. Like I rolled it wrong, like big time. You know, I will never recover from this.
I'm Hugh Van Kylenberg from the Resilience Project.
And I'm Ryan Shelton from My Mum.
And I'm Josh from Hugh's mum.
And this is The Imperfects. What's cooking?
Oh, good.
You know?
I like
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Yep.
You know why I said that?
That's how you always greet us when you walk in,
Hey, what's cooking?
because you're a cool man.
Great to introduce that into my repertoire. Hey, Mum, what's cooking? Like when she's not cooking. Have you got a phrase that you'd like to introduce into your repertoire? But no one would judge it. No one would think anything of it. You just get to start saying it.
No, nothing.
Awesome. No, exactly what I was after. Imagine if the start of White Men Can't Jump started with Sidney Dean going up to Billy Hoyle and saying, "Hey, do you want to play?" And he goes, "Nah." Pretty shit movie then, wouldn't it?
No, sorry, nothing came to my mind.
Yeah, that's all right. No, you're honest. It's good.
Yeah, nothing happened in my brain. Sorry.
Fine.
I'll come back to you on that in a few episodes' time.
How about just the end of this episode?
Okay, yeah, maybe. That's a better tease.
Okay, good.
So we do want to talk about something before we get into...
And the reason I said what's cooking is because we got Poh.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Poh's on the show
Of
today.
course, yeah. Which is, a good thing to acknowledge.
Yeah.
But before we do that, we should probably just let people know, anyone out there who's setting their clock to Saturday mornings to wake up to the Imperfects, F-I-X.
That's our weekly flashback episode, which we've been doing this year.
Yes, so we're pulling back from those and we're just focusing solely on the main episodes now. So find something else to set your clock to on Saturday mornings.
Yeah. So
Saturday morning cartoons.
Imperfinished.
Yeah, Imperfinished on Saturday mornings.
Yeah.
Although you will still be able to get archival clips that we're going to be putting out on YouTube, as well as full old episodes, which we are doing at the moment if you go back, but we're going to try and get more of them up there a bit faster.
Yeah, it's like
forget about what I just said. Imper, keep going. on
on
YouTube.
YouTube. Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay.
Cool.
So do you know, on Perfect?
Yeah.
Do you know, yesterday at Baker's Delight, I made such a scene. I didn't need to.
Oh, yeah?
A lovely young girl served me.
Yep.
I got 6 sticky buns. And why is that funny?
Which one's a sticky bun?
It's like a hot cross bun, but that doesn't have the cross on it anymore.
Oh.
You can get a fix of hot cross buns all year round at Baker's Delight, but like that just doesn't.
Oh, they removed the cross.
Yeah.
Just a little loophole.
For religious reasons.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just hot buns.
Yeah.
But they're called sticky buns.
Yeah, but they're not hot, so they're just sticky buns. They're wonderful. But I was having a nice conversation with the girl as she wrapped the buns up and she gave them to me. And as she handed them over, she went, perfect. And I started to walk off and I went, oh, was she referencing our show?
Oh my
I think she
God.
I think she might have been. I think she was trying to be funny, and I think she was trying to say imperfect.
But she said perfect.
Well, she
Yeah.
made a weird noise first. She went, perfect.
Perfect. Perfect.
She was like, perfect. Yeah, it was like that. As I took the buns off, she goes, perfect, and smiled, a very warm smile. So
yeah. She works in hospitality, so it's normal for her to smile at the customer.
very true, but it was almost a knowing look. So as I walked away, I went, what do I do here?
Oh, God,
Because
do some photos, do a photo session. to sign some loaves of bread.
No, so I just thought she was probably saying perfect. So it was a perfect interaction that we had.
Yeah.
Yep.
But if she was saying imperfect and I just walked off, she'll think, he is so rude.
Oh.
And I walked out the door. The door's closed behind me and she was serving someone else.
Yep.
And I went, I feel so bad. So I then made a call when I was out of the shop to go back into the shop.
Oh my God.
And say I'm on a pot.
And to say to her,
to your life, to live a day as you, I would be so interested.
But I think you would have done the same thing if you'd walked out and thought, if she is a fan of the show and she was trying to make a nice little joke, to just walk off it would have seemed very rude and very cold.
True.
And I went, I think I have to go back in.
But if you'd already had a very friendly interaction, like you chatted for a little bit.
It was perfect, yeah.
It was probably enough, but I went back in
Yep.
and I had to interrupt the person she's currently serving.
Had
Well,
to.
if I queue up, this is like a bit too much.
Yeah, so
I just popped around the side and went, I'm so sorry to interrupt. Did you just say perfect or imperfect? I said, did you say perfect or imperfect?
We're not supposed to be doing this stuff for like years when we're really desperate for attention. No one's listening to the podcast anymore. And we hear someone say perfect and we run back and say, so are you referencing that podcast that I do? You went, nah, that's cool. I didn't think so. Anyway.
Well, that's pretty much, she said.
What'd you say?
She said, I beg your pardon? I was just wondering when you handed over the buns, we said, did you say perfect or imperfect? Now, I reckon the lady who was getting served, I think she knew the imperfects and she laughed very loud. And the girl went, I just said perfect. And I went,
That's worse that the new customer knew the show.
So I said, oh, okay, no worries. And then I had a new thing on my head. It was like, okay, do I explain why I've come back and done this?
Unbelievable.
So I took 2 steps away. Didn't make it to the door. And I went, no, she needs, that is too. So I went back. Said, sorry to interrupt again. Just the reason I said, so I do a podcast called The Imperfects.
You are like literally living a sitcom.
I said, I do a podcast called The Imperfects. And I thought maybe you're referencing that when you didn't, but I thought you said imperfect. And she goes, okay, I've just got to serve this lady.
And what did the lady say?
She looked horrified what was going on. She just looked so...
How embarrassing.
She didn't back me up. She didn't say anything. I don't know how she'd back me up. I don't know why she'd back me up.
Yeah.
And then I looked at her and went, I'm so sorry. And she goes, are you good? And I went, yeah, I'm definitely going to go. And then the lady basically goes, okay, probably a good idea. And I went, oh, okay. And I walked out. Never before has my tail been further between my legs.
You know, if we replayed that story, we took out all the laughs and just had violin music underneath it. It's the saddest story you've ever heard. In fact, I think we should do that. Piano or like some sad music and no laughs, and you just tell that story. It's devastating.
And the end scene is me just driving home in my car, just in silence. It was one of the most awkward encounters of my life. It was awful. Anyway.
Oh, God.
So Poh Ling Yeow is... What a human being she is.
Poh, for those who don't know, the few of you who don't know, one of the current judges on MasterChef, Channel 10, 10 play, any 10, just brilliant. Started as a contestant and then worked her way up the ranks, had her own TV shows, wrote books, and is now a judge.
Often I'll mention who I'm interviewing that week to friends and stuff. And when I mention it with Poh, everyone's response is just, I love Poh.
You should go into Baker's Delight and see what they think. Should let them know there's a new episode coming out here.
She's universally loved, and the response from the Resilience Project team when she left, she had a group selfie with everyone. I was blown away by when she talks about, so she's had a couple of very big relationships in her life, both end reasonably abruptly, and the way that she dealt with the relationship breaking up, but also the way she came to the conclusion that the relationship wasn't serving anymore and acted on it. I've never really heard anything like it before.
Neither.
And I just think so many people listening out there who find themselves in a relationship that they feel like is not serving them anymore, I just think they'll find it incredibly helpful and relatable.
Yeah. It's out of this world.
Yeah.
So really, the way that takes place is just unbelievable.
Yeah. Also her journey through I guess feeling like an outsider living in Australia, someone who come from Malaysia, but someone who kind of never really felt like she fit in anywhere.
Yeah.
Her journey through becoming a Mormon and then deciding to leave the church, her relationships, and now to where she finds herself now as this incredible personality on our televisions. She's just wonderful, and what a great person as well. And for those of you who are new to the show, when we come back from the interview, we'll just talk about some of the key takeaways that we got from the episode, and I will also be bringing you a term that I'd like to have reintroduced without question and judgment.
Yes.
Yep.
I'm looking forward to that.
Okay.
Yeah. So here she is, Poh Ling Yeow.
I feel like in a way you're a little bit like Madonna.
Oh, please.
As in the name.
Yeah,
as
the
in,
name.
yeah.
I gotcha. Yeah. It's a single.
I was trying to find the parallels.
Yeah. No, people always use that actually.
Yeah, the Australian Madonna.
Oh, well, no, just the single name thing.
Yeah, yeah.
This is getting awkward so quickly.
No, it's our fault. It's completely our fault. Or
I think
Hugh's fault.
I think I jumped on the, oh, please, like as if you were comparing me to Madonna.
No,
I might have instigated the Orkies.
Not at all. Well, Poh, I mean, it's so exciting to have someone of your stature in the Australian television landscape. It's really cool to have. There's sort of sometimes when we have people on this show where we kind of, I sort of feel like, we're a legitimate player now.
Yeah.
We've got like Poh's come on. We're a legitimate player.
Oh my God, I reject all that.
Well,
I feel so
I
much
insist.
like, I always still feel like I don't know how I got here.
Oh, yeah, well, that's probably a healthy thing. Yeah.
I always think I magooed my way here.
You magooed?
Yeah.
What do you mean magooed?
You know, Mr. Magoo is just kind of like accidentally not falling off places.
Oh, yes. You magooed your way. I like that. Yeah. I feel like I'm still magooing.
I think it's a good way to be.
It is. So, Poh, look, everyone knows you, Poh. Everyone knows. But, Hugh, I wonder if it'd be worth a quick just refresher.
You've been magooing since 2009. That's when you're probably magooing before that, but like magooing in front of all of us since 2009.
Yeah.
That was when you had your first audition for MasterChef.
Yes.
But before that, I was trying to work out how to describe you as you are more you're an artist.
Yes.
You're an artist,
yes.
probably first
I still
and foremost.
describe myself as an artist first, then a cook.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
I like that.
I think because the art thing I really built from scratch on my own, and it's something that I can thread back to childhood, whereas the cooking thing came a bit later. It's always been present in my life because of my culture, but in terms of professionally and the way it happened on TV, I'm always healthily suspicious of how it came to be.
Yep.
And so I'm always like, I'll just always say cook second just to be, I don't know, for some reason I just feel more comfortable with that.
You've also published cookbooks, including Poh's Kitchen and Poh Bakes 100 Greats. You've appeared on a multitude of cooking shows, including Poh's Kitchen, Poh on the Road, Poh & Co, and Adam and Poh's Great Australian Bites. You've launched a gourmet food company, Jamface. You've competed on I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here, as well as Lego Masters Australia, and Thank God You're Here. And you've been nominated for a Logie as well. So that's a lot of, what is it? Magooing. No, not magooing. I just think it's not magooing anymore. Like you've made it.
Yeah.
It's legitimate. Amazing.
Oh yeah. I never actually remember much of it. I'm not very good at celebrating
the wins.
The wins. Yeah, I'm always sort of very eager to keep moving forward.
Does it feel like a really big win being asked? I think it's so you're returning to the 16th season of MasterChef this year as a permanent judge and host.
Yeah.
Surely that feels like
that's a moment.
Yeah.
That's definitely a moment.
And were you able to pause and just think, this is good?
Yeah, I had to. I think it still comes with that healthy bit of
imposter sort of thing.
Yeah, definitely. I think because as a contestant you go in and everyone is like speculating whether you're worthy of going to the next stage, and like you're still kind of just doing your own thing. Like, you know, you don't really have to. You're not saying you're anything. It's up to the judges to decide. Whereas I think for me to even accept the position of judge, there's like no back door. I'm really like declaring myself like an expert, I guess, and that makes me feel really uncomfortable, to be honest.
Even though you say it's like a bit of imposter syndrome now, or you can't believe you made it, did you have a feeling from a young age that you were destined to do something? Did you feel like I've got something to offer the world?
You know, weirdly, I did. And I was such a shy kid. I think that was probably one of my anxieties that I couldn't quite pinpoint because I wasn't mature enough to identify it. But I had this little like ham in me that like I used to get on we had this little like Egyptian poof that I'd stand up and sing when nobody was looking. And
like a little stage.
Yeah. And I would do all these little things like, and they were all kind of performance related. And then as I got older, I just had such chronic anxiety, sort of like self-esteem issues. I was just such a shy kid.
So what age are we talking here when you felt
all the way through school? like from primary to end of like high school. But what was odd is I've always had this like slight extroverted streak, and I would challenge myself to. So I remember just being so painfully shy in primary school. Like on one of the first days in Australia, I like vomited onto my table because I was too scared to put my hand up to say that I need to go leave the table. Like that's how nervous I was.
So new school, new country, is that what?
Yeah.
Okay.
And
That makes sense.
It's the first time I've ever told that story.
Yeah. What, like projectile?
Full projectile. But then when I was in high school, I remember just thinking, I'm so tired of this. So I enrolled myself in speech and drama classes, which was like so
huge.
Yeah, it was just so
so tired of being shy. Okay, yeah.
Yeah. And
or vomiting everywhere.
and I could feel like there was this sort of performative aspect to my personality that I wanted to come out, but I didn't know how it could. So I rolled in these classes, and it was really funny because I had all these very confident, beautiful girls in my class, and they were like all, like state swimmers and, like all that stuff.
The confident kids.
Yeah, confident kids. And I remember just feeling like really bodgy and unconfident. And I was always terrible, not great in class when we were doing all our rehearsals. But then you do these like proper exams like you do with music. When you do violin and all that, you do like your proper Trinity School of London or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
And they have like a fancy adjudicator that comes from England and stuff, right? And
just to judge you guys.
Yeah.
I did that. Did you do that? College exams for music, for piano?
Yeah, I reckon I did. Yeah. Were they like level 1, 2? I
remember doing level 5 piano Trinity College. And
I reckon I didn't get good enough to do Trinity College because you were far superior.
Massive flex from here.
Yeah.
Level 5. Really dropped that in, didn't you?
Been waiting to get this in for a long time.
Only got to level 1. So.
You're well aware of what Josh got. How'd you go, Josh? Did you do Trinity? Yeah, level 1, yeah. I got level 5. Weird. Yeah. I guess that's 4 better. Anyway, Poh.
No. Anyway, so I enrolled in these classes, and I remember just battling through them because I just felt so inferior next to these girls. And I remember the tutor, like she would never really give me much attention. And after the exams, it was just so weird because it's only the examiner and me. I came back and I aced it. I got the highest marks out of everyone. And that was such a big, it was a big notch in my imprinting to do something that feels horrible and try and push past the pain.
Take a risk.
Yeah. And like you will be rewarded. So it's just little baby steps like that. And then I did year 12 drama, so I had to perform in that. And I was amazed that I could snap out of that, the person that I thought I was, and become this other thing. And so they were kind of my first experiences, yeah.
Did the shyness and self-esteem, was it just at school or was it everywhere? So were you like quiet
everywhere.
At home? And
at home, we were kind of, I think it's because like my parents were very busy at work. We weren't really encouraged to have a social life. So I don't even really have a litmus to say whether I was outgoing or not because I had no friends to like kind of not that many friends to bounce off of. And I did have like very close sort of small circle of friends all through school, or I had like one best friend.
Yeah.
I was very much like a one person thing.
Yeah.
Did you feel a sense of turning up to a new country, and did you have a feeling as a young kid that I look different or I feel different or I...
Always. Took up a lot of my brain space actually. And what's really kind of odd about it is I think when we came to Australia it was definitely physical, but when I was sort of in my mid-30s I was writing like an artist statement and I was just sort of describing my art, and I had this like full-on epiphany about the fact that I've always actually felt a little bit beamed in from somewhere else, because even when I was in Malaysia, I never quite I always felt really on the outer as well because it was very academic in Malaysia, and I was not an academic performer at all because I was like a daydreamer, creative type. And so I really struggled through primary school, and that was a massive source of anxiety. School's very academically driven in Asian countries, so there's no sort of emphasis on social development or sport or anything like that. Then when we came to Australia, I just completely flourished academically. But then I was like so freaked out by how much sport we had to play here. I was like, I was always the last one picked. And if I was ever fielding, I would like go to the most like nether region of the field because I knew the ball would never get to me. And I couldn't swim. So I was always like the dud doing laps with a kickboard across the shallow end of the pool.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So all those things just like made me feel more and more like, self-conscious.
It's such a thing that we just, growing up in Australia, you just sort of take for granted that sport is such a huge
massive
part of it. And if you're not into sport, it would be very strange. And particularly if you've come from another country where it's not the focus.
Like, why am I playing rounders every day?
Yeah.
What's this doing for me?
Yeah. And I think with sport also comes this physicality and understanding of your body. And like I was just so uncomfortable in my own skin. Like I hated everything about myself, like the way I looked. And I become really obsessed with certain parts of my body. And even like I was standing near the tuck shop of my primary school and looking at this girl buy a sunny boy. And seeing the sun like hit the blonde hairs on her arm.
Oh, wow.
And she was just eating with such confidence. And I remember seeing her eat it and tear off onto the monkey bars and then just jump off this rope. We had these ropes that you'd swing off with it. And I remember just thinking, oh my God, I will never be able to do that. I will never. And I like to the point where I didn't even feel like I could buy a sunny boy because that was just that was like completely compressed with jumping off the monkey bars. They were like just these cool things, these two things that a cool person does.
Wow.
And that was not me. I was the idiot that rocked up with fried rice in my lunchbox and like felt like a goober because my legs looked like a weird shape to me.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, just fixated on really weird things. And my paintings are actually, the girl is actually developed from all my phenotypes that I hated about myself.
I was going to say, those pictures, they seem quite almost alien, like there's an alien element to...
There is a little bit, yeah.
And were you around at a young age, were you also drawing a lot? Was there a lot of... Yeah.
Yeah, I started drawing to mimic my brother because I idolized him and he's a really talented artist. It really started when I came to Australia and I found like it was just such a place of solace for me. Like I identified it right away. Like when I do this thing, it makes me feel like amazing.
Yeah. Was there social capital in the drawing as well? Like
there was.
Yeah.
So like I used to get attention for it at school. It just gave me this real sense of confidence and I think a sense of purpose and belonging.
When that image of the girl with the sunny boy is that is just like really beautifully said and just takes me to a place of like being a kid and not feeling like I belong. When you talked about being recognised as a good drawer, was that the notch on the belt sort of thing? Is that a notch of self-confidence that I can do something well or a notch of like I'm accepted by the others?
It wasn't accepted. It was more I'm capable.
Okay, yeah.
Like I did this. I searched this out. Like I felt not confident and I proved to myself that I can overcome that.
By being capable at things and good at things. Yeah, okay. Did you ever feel accepted or like you belong at school at all?
No. Yeah, I don't think I ever did. Even now, I feel it in big spaces where there's lots of people. Like if I go to an awards night, it's such a gooby feeling for me. Like I find it really hard to manage. And I always gravitate straight to the comedians.
Oh, yeah.
Because I just always feel more comfortable with the outliers, you know?
So you mentioned your parents before. And they were working very hard. I'm so interested if you're comfortable talking about your mum and dad and just the role they played in getting you through what sounded like a childhood that was challenging and that you just felt like you're on the outside all the time, and that the sort of symptom of that was shyness.
Yeah. Interestingly, I feel like my parents were, I'm not going to say neglectful, but mum and dad were very much work focused, and culturally, I think that was just such a norm. You know, they were new to the country. They'd done this really brave thing, just uprooted the whole family, and they were working really hard to like fit into a new community.
Was there a reason they chose to move to Australia or leave Malaysia?
Yeah, because I was such a dunce at school. I had no hope of getting a tertiary education.
Really?
Yeah, they were really worried about me.
Right,
I was
okay.
struggling so badly even at primary school level. But also all of mum's siblings lived here, bar one who lives in Canada. So it was just like it made sense.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So, and they knew that it was going to give us a really lovely lifestyle. So,
Did you know, when did you know that at the time, or have you since found out that that was one of the key reasons?
I was told very soon.
Wow.
But you know what's really strange? When I got told that we were moving to Australia, I think a lot of kids would have found it a bit of an anxious thing. But like I've got probably a handful of light bulb moments in my life where it's just such a moment of knowing. I was just like clear as day in my head as an 8-year-old. I was like, oh, life is going to make sense now.
Oh, it felt right.
Yeah, I knew it.
Yeah.
I was like, good thing's going to happen. It was like a knowing. I don't know how else to explain it except that. And the moment we set foot in Australia, I felt like everything was going to be okay. Because when I was in Malaysia, every day I literally felt like I was from another planet. Like I felt I was so anxious as a kid.
So how old were you when you moved, sorry?
8, but I turned 9 on the plane.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
On the day that we migrated.
And anxious in Malaysia because of the school?
Yeah, I didn't understand. I had a learning difficulty, clearly,
Yeah.
like now that I look back on it, and because just the times and the culture just not picked up. So I just got through a good part of primary school just not understanding anything. So it was just this fog of confusion all the time. So I was just incredibly anxious. And then it caused me to have separation anxiety from my auntie. So going back to your question, mum and dad were really busy at work. So the person that kind of saved me was my auntie Kim. So she's lived with my family since my brother was born, who's 3 years older than me. And she's kind of been our primary caregiver our whole lives. Because I've kind of grown up with 2 mums. And I came home to school to her. She's the one that got me ready for school, like plaited my hair, made lunch for me. So she was always there. She was my constant. So it's been a very interesting thing since mum's passed away because it's always been really difficult for me because I shared a room with auntie till I was 19.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
So your auntie Kim did come to Australia, obviously.
Yeah. And she's actually mum's auntie.
Oh, right. Okay. An older auntie. Gotcha.
Yeah. So she came to live with us to help nanny us when we were little. And then she just stayed. She never left. And she never had kids of her own or anything. So she's sacrificed a great deal to be with our family and has considered my brother and I her own kids in a way. And so mum's always kind of been this like almost like an older sister. And still my mum, obviously, but they play quite different roles. And I've always just had this like push and pull with my affections for the both of them because I've always been – it's still a thing to juggle, like 2 matriarchs in the home. And so, yeah, when mum passed away, that was one of the really strange positive byproducts is that I could give a lot of attention to my auntie without feeling self-conscious about it.
Ah, gotcha. Yeah. Well, that's a very unique thing to navigate.
Yeah. Yeah.
Was there a sense of guilt in there that you weren't?
Yeah.
Yeah. That you
there was always
had that mothering relationship with someone who wasn't your mum.
Yeah. And also just being self-conscious of them, I don't know, just sort of feeling like that one might be feeling like I'm more loyal to the other one.
Playing favourites.
Yeah, and navigating the 2 mums kind of thing has always been really difficult for me.
Did you ever speak to your mum about that?
Not really.
And is your Auntie Kim still around?
Yeah,
Okay.
she's still around, yeah. Auntie Kim's very generous. She's a Buddhist, so she's always like, it's always about everyone else first. But that's always worried me because I don't want her going without her feeling our gratitude for what she's given my family. So that's been quite a complex part of the grief that I've had with Mum. It is one of the silver linings, if you could say.
When did your mum pass away?
Mum passed away 2 Novembers ago.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just been over a year.
Wow.
Yeah. About a year and a half.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you're grieving at the moment? Do you feel like you're...
I think I'll grieve forever. I think you grieve forever for a mum.
Mm.
But there's been some really profound lessons, and I think it's definitely sort of pooling into what I'm feeling is like wisdom is starting to happen for me, because I turned 50 like last December, and it's very interesting because I think there's nothing like proper grief that forces all these learnings that you've had, all these mistakes, and they kind of transform into wisdom when you have the hindsight.
Yeah.
It's like all the bads, all the bad decisions, everything just suddenly goes, oh my God, okay, I understand how that happened, why that's happened, how that's affected me, and how I've learned from it, and why, I'm just feeling a lot of that at the moment. Yeah, a lot of, like, I feel like I am really coming into my female power at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't sound too cheesy.
Huh.
But yeah, with Mum, I was away when Mum passed away. I was overseas. So that was probably the hardest.
Oh.
That's the thing that I do keep returning to. Because I just keep wondering why I chose to roll the dice, because she was ill at the time, quite ill. But I just had this sort of blind faith that she would be fine because she's such a trooper.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
And like a week into my trip, she passed away. And I was really far away. I was in Europe. And
Is this a work trip? Or?
Yeah, it was a work trip as well. And the only way that's got me through it is to own it. Because I was searching so hard. I was like, how am I going to get over this? This was just the worst rolling of a dice ever. Like I rolled it wrong like big time. You know, I will never recover from this. And I just had to keep like digging. And how I've managed to get over it is how I get over everything, and that's just to own my part in it. And I was like, you did make a wrong decision. And you did know she was sick, and you are a risk taker. But how I kind of am okay with it is that I think if I had been faced with a decision 10 times over, because of who I am, I think I would have made the same decision.
I think that's the wisdom. Like I feel like that's incredible because there's so much pressure. I feel like when a close family member is sick, and you have this, you're faced with a decision where it's like, well, I'm supposed to be going away, or I am away, and maybe I should come home, and you're having to make these decisions, and feels like there's a lot of pressure to make all the right moves, because to not do so would be like disrespectful or something like that.
Yeah.
But of course you wouldn't, if you had have known what was going to happen, of course you'd make different, but you didn't.
Yes.
You didn't know.
Yeah.
And so, but that, I think that is to accept that and to own it is like, that is, it's kind of like, what a weight off.
Yeah, it did. And as soon as I was like, oh, this is actually very simple. I just have to own that it was kind of a shit decision based on what I knew. But I think based on like my character and who I am and how I know myself, I am a risk taker, except I just took a really bad risk that day and it was a wrong one, and I'm just going to have to live with it. And it did actually alleviate a lot of me just recycling the thought in my head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think that's the gateway to accepting and forgiving yourself for all those other mistakes you're talking about?
Yeah, it is. I think like taking ownership for your mistakes is the first time I ever did it, it has set me on such a different mental trajectory for the rest of my life. And it was when I was 32 when I decided to get a divorce. And I was in such an unhappy place. And I remember thinking, I just don't recognize who I am anymore. And I just resented Matt. But I loved him at the same time.
When you'd been together for a long time, hadn't you?
We've been together for 10 years. I'm like, I don't know how to get out of this. We've been living together for 3 years, almost like roommates. We hadn't been intimate or anything for years. And we just didn't know how to get out of this like dysfunctional holding pattern, but we were really good mates. And like it was related to the pressures as well because both our families were Mormon and I think everyone thought we were going to pop out babies and we were like, oh my God, we're like going completely the other direction. Like we couldn't be more not about to do that. And I was painting. Usually happens to me when I get these thoughts when I'm in flow state because it's a form of meditation when you're doing something and your mind's kind of relaxed. And it just was clear as day. It was like, oh, you can leave this situation. You are not a victim. You never have been. You just haven't been able to see this point of view. And I was like, the minute I realised I had absolute power to control how I felt, I went and got the divorce papers, served it to him. And then I was
Really?
like...
Without talking to him about it?
No.
Wow.
We had been so up and down.
Okay,
It was
yeah.
it was so broken.
I mean, how immediate? How? So you went from feeling of, I guess, being trapped, or there's nothing I can do here. I'm just in an unhappy relationship. To, oh no, I'm not. I can do something about this. And then, how long after that did you give him the divorce papers?
Oh, like days after. Yeah.
And this is a strange question, but did you have to Google what to do to get the papers? Like, I feel like I wouldn't
did.
even know what to do.
Yeah. No, I can't remember how I knew, but I just went to the deaths, marriages. Yeah.
Ah, what a huge fork in the road. But like, you obviously had such clarity in it.
Yeah. And so now, like, because of that moment, it's a bit like the enrolling myself in drama classes because of the shyness. It's one of my greatest talents. I can spin any terrible situation into a good one.
That's a great skill.
It really is.
Because even like when I was just so amazed when I was going through like the grief for mum, like on the way home, I think it is related to the artist mindset and being open to feeling because I think artists feel pretty hard.
Yeah.
And I remember traveling home and just feeling like I was going to die. I just did not know how I was going to – I couldn't believe that I just missed this such a defining moment.
Did it feel a bit like a nightmare?
It did.
Yeah,
it absolutely felt like a nightmare. And I remember immediately being incredibly like acutely aware of the kindness of strangers.
Oh.
Yeah.
It was like because I was in so much pain, my senses were like really tuned into these things that I would usually probably never notice. So like I remember getting on the plane, this air stewardess came up to me and did this like she rocked up and I turned around. I didn't want to look up at her because I had cried so hard. I was seeing double. Like I was so in agony. I was in absolute hell. My face would have looked like it had been kicked by an elephant and there was tears rolling down my face. She still went through with her entire duty-free spiel. I was like, what the fuck? I was like, are you AI? Like, what's happening? And then
get a beautiful slab of Kleenex tissues.
Yeah. And then there was another one walked by. He didn't even look at me. He just like went like this and threw me a bunch of tissues, which was the cutest thing ever. Right?
Amazing.
And I was like, oh my God, I love you. And then I just noticed all this stuff. And then I landed in Dubai and I remember just feeling so disorientated and I needed to ask instructions for everything because I was just so scared that I was going to not be in the right place. And I just remember thinking, oh my God, she's so kind. Like I'm like the 10 millionth person that would have asked her directions for that. And she did it with such grace and such like joy. Like I was just so aware of that. And then I went to have a shower in the lounge and I came out of the shower and there was this very beautiful, large woman that took the entire only alcove space that had a mirror and a sink in it, and I wanted to brush my teeth. And I remember thinking, oh, wow, you're really beautiful. And I don't know why, I'm like, I'm going to have a go at doing something nice, even though I feel like shit right now. And I'm like, hey, I was like, you have got the most amazing booty. And I was like, I wish you could donate it to some of my pancake flat Asian ass. And she turned around and she just burst out laughing. She was African. And she's like, it just made us so happy. And she goes, oh, man, yeah, we always laugh at your Asian asses. And it was just such a cool moment. And after that, I was just
always.
like, yeah, friend.
Always.
It's true.
We never stop.
That's all we do.
It is a known Asian phenotype. And it was funny because then after that, people were like, are you okay? I'm like, yes, still able to laugh. And after that moment, I was like, I am going to be okay. Because if I feel this crap and I still can have a joke with someone, I think I'm going to be okay. Yeah. So I don't know. I can spin things in my head.
You seem to be able to apply a level of, well, to put it in context, this is something I'm not very good at, is if I make a mistake, I really beat myself up about it. And it sounds like you're not a stranger to doing that for a little bit, but you also seem to be able to access an incredible amount of compassion for yourself as well.
Wrong.
No. Okay.
It's only for the big things that I
Josh,
really
come on,
can't
mate.
control.
Josh,
Isn't that weird?
no, Josh. Sorry, Poh.
So-
Sometimes she gets
Bad
it right.
question. Bad
Sometimes
question.
she gets it wrong.
So weirdly, it's for things big things I really can't control. I'm good at spinning. But if it's like a tiny thing, I am so obsessive.
What would be an example of a tiny thing?
Okay, so last night, right, I was in a service department and I was quite cold and I wanted to use a spare blanket. And when I got it out, it smelled weird. Like they hadn't cleaned it. I could smell
that's
the
annoying.
like a bit of BO and a bit of
That's not good.
cologne on it.
Yeah.
I just sat there freezing my ass off, wondering if I should call someone about it and ask them for a new blanket, or would I look like an asshole? And I just froze all night instead. And then I was really angry with myself for not saying anything. And like, does that? And I just that just rolled around in my head for like the whole night. I couldn't sleep about it because I was cold.
Yeah.
And I was like, it's too late now. No one's at concierge. But like weird things like that, I can't get over. And if like I package a cake a little bit weirdly and I knew it was like maybe a bit unstable for my market stall and I still sent it because in a rush, I'm like, oh. And I'll just think
And
about it
ruminate
the
on it for-
whole day. Yeah. So it's just like little things.
Yeah, interesting.
So how did you go? I hope this is okay to talk about, but after you did separate from your partner, then I don't know the timeline, but soon after that, I think he was then was with your best friend.
Yeah.
That, I mean, how did that go? On the, like, you're able to, for big things, you're able to show compassion for yourself. But what about that is out of your control there? But how did you go moving on from reconciling that?
I was incredibly angry for about, I immediately.
50 years.
No. It was very strange. I could feel my head split down the middle because I thought, on one hand, I would be choosing to react like this because I've already left the relationship, essentially. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It was quite shortly after we'd split up, but it still really hurt.
Yeah.
And I pretty much called her and spoke my mind. But it was so clear in my head what was going to happen, and it was pretty much what happened. I said, just leave me alone for like 3 weeks.
Weeks?
Yeah. And then I'm pretty sure everything will be fine again after.
Why 3 weeks?
I don't know.
Seemed like the right amount.
Because we all saw each other all the time.
Okay.
So we were just this, like, we used to hang out together all the time. And you got to remember, Matt and I hadn't been intimate for years. So we were essentially already in a friendship kind of dynamic. So I think in that regard, it probably hurt less than, if things were completely fine in that department. So, I just kind of knew that I would be going in reverse if I decided to make a big deal out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That's so wise.
Yeah, still very hard. That's still,
It's like
even
putting out.
with the
yeah.
explanation, it's still like, God, to actually do it in the heat of the moment.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
Maybe there's something wrong with me. But I get over trauma quite well, but I've also realized recently that I have a terrible memory, and maybe that's what it is.
I do as well. I feel like we're very similar in many ways.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, I haven't gone through things like that. But Jam and I, my partner Jam and I, we were talking the other day, and she's like, "You don't really feel things like other people." And I was like, I don't think I think you're right. I was like, I don't think I'm a sociopath, but maybe I'm on the way. Who knows? But yeah, I kind of relate to that. I'm not saying you are or at all, but
Same person, same sociopath.
wow.
You were saying you were coming into your wisdom now, but everything about that story before sounds incredibly wise. Like to be able to see, kind of like, I don't want to say it because I don't want to judge anyone who wouldn't, because I think I would just be angry and I'd be holding on to the anger for a very long time. But to be able to choose to not hold on to it and sort of see the bigger picture in a way and see it from a more logical point of view of what you would be holding on to if you're holding on to anger, I think is incredibly wise.
I think it's because I knew that I wasn't leaving the friendship. I knew we were going to stay friends. And strangely, he actually moved like literally across the road from me, which was so weird as well. Everyone's like, what the hell are you guys doing? And my mate lived in the same block of flats as me, almost.
Oh.
So we lived in this little, I'm trying not to say the shape because a lot of people want to say that's a love triangle.
Oh, right.
But yeah.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah, it's like a cut-off square. Yeah.
we lived in a cut-off square kind of shape.
Yeah, I know that.
And but what it was, it's just because I had hit such a threshold of not recognizing myself, and I was so angry all the time like I was just a ball of reaction. Like I wasn't myself anymore. And the minute I decided, I could feel myself drain back into me, my old self. So when I found out, I was like, oh, should we just collect all that garbage and put it back into me again? So I just knew very clear cut I couldn't do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I'd already recognized the difference in myself after having made that decision.
Yeah.
So I think because it had hit such a low point, it just was very clear. Yeah.
Like this could be
brilliant.
a deeply relatable moment for anyone listening who is feeling like they're in a relationship that they haven't really ever questioned. They just know that they're not happy, and they know that, and they don't recognize themselves, and they have a memory or a vision of themselves before the relationship that they love, but that's gone. I feel like you've just given a deeply insightful moment to a lot of people.
Yeah. I think you can choose.
And further, on from that, do you feel like you were a different person? Like, did you change after you left that relationship?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I think I did. The thing that's very unusual about that relationship also is that I still love Matt so deeply. He's like still my ride or die. So he's actually my agent. He's my closest confidant. We own Jamface together.
Oh, wow.
And we are still knitted very we have this creative symbiosis that I have like with no one else.
I feel like this is the most mature thing I've ever heard. like because it's such a mature, because you would think, like, my immediate thought goes to like, well, I can never trust you again. But clearly you were able to get past that and have a business with someone, have them be your agent. It's like, that's insane trust. And I'm so in awe of that ability to be able to just go like, oh, well, don't take it personally. This is not about, whatever the thought process was. And then to be able to be mature enough to be like, no, we can still have a relationship.
Yeah.
Amazing.
It was so good because we could throw all the bad things into the garbage and then like keep all the good things. And I think there's something so powerful to be said about history You know, when you have history with someone and to be able to remember what made you love them in the first place. I think that's a really beautiful thing to be able to hang on to. However, I always premise this with we didn't have kids. I think that's a big factor because I think that absolutely complicates things when other partners come into play. It gets really complicated and I completely understand. And the other thing is both exes have to be willing participants.
Yeah, true.
So if one's being a dick and the other one's wanting to resolve things, it doesn't work. Yeah.
So was there, this is maybe strange considering the exact circumstances, but was there an element of like relief when he was with someone, even though it was with your friend, but with someone else?
Well, I was actually relieved that it was with her in the end because I really love her.
Unbelievable.
And like...
I just want to clap.
It's like,
who are you?
I know. But if there's an awards ceremony you're going to feel comfortable at, it's the Mature Awards. Because you're going to clean sweep it.
I just think I don't want to be with him, so why shouldn't he be happy? And you know, it gives me so much joy. Because one time I was over at their house and I was actually working on Matt's computer for some reason because my computer had broken down. And they were just hanging out in the kitchen going through like a fashion catalogue and just paying the crap out of all the fashion in it. And they were laughing their asses off. And it literally gave me warm fuzzies. I was like, I could never bring that out of him. Like we just were the wrong combination.
Wow.
You know?
Yep.
But he brings out different things in me. It's really interesting. I feel like if I hadn't met Matt, I wouldn't have accomplished half the things that I've done with my life because he pushed me to the brink always, and that is the thing that has given me courage. It's very interesting. I think if someone hadn't taken me to that brink, I wouldn't be familiar with that feeling of staying on the precipice and doing something like signing up for MasterChef or deciding I want to be a painter or there's all these things that I've done where he's just always been such a great enabler, and me leaving the church. And I don't cast aspersions on anyone who's religious, of course, but for me it was never right and I just struggled with it so much. And he was the one that said, you know, anything that, you know, you have deep conviction in and you've got like, you know, and you want to break out of something, it's always going to feel awful and you're going to upset people. You're going to have to learn that life is that. Like you can't be a people pleaser and make yourself happy as well always. And like good things come in difficult packages. Like get ready to get comfortable with feeling uncomfortable if you want to achieve extraordinary things with your life, you know. And going against what my parents wanted, which was like to stay in church, get married, all those kinds of things. And be like, you know, a good church member. Like he's like, because when we got married, we decided not to do it the church way. And that's when we also decided to part with the church.
This is the church?
Mormon church. Yeah.
Was Matt Mormon as well?
Yeah. That's how we met.
Okay.
And I remember him just telling me this, and it's just so imprinted in my brain. He's like, all those cultural conventions and stuff that you feel loyal to, he's like, you're going to have to fight those. Like you're in Australia now. If you want to do the things you want to do and be the person you want to be, you're going to have to like
push against them.
Yeah, it's going to be hard.
I was going to ask, but you've given a great example. But because the pushing to the brink, I often think is a negative expression.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
this is the thing that I feel is one of the wisdoms. I see all these like patterns like I've been around long enough now. I see these patterns. One of them is not to ever defy the natural order of things. Okay.
Can you explain that?
So that's one of my philosophies, which is like you can't want to be famous. That's like a byproduct. You have to just want to be good at what something that you love to do. And then like if you become known for it, then great.
Yeah.
But it's just
so that's the natural order.
Be that's the natural order.
I guess
so everything
which is a rare. I feel like unfortunately a lot of people got that the wrong way around.
Yes, they think they can cheat in the natural order of things.
Can you give another example of the natural order of things? Because I think I get it, but I'm not 100%.
So for me personally, once I start to delegate things that I feel like my dirty work, I feel like I get into trouble mentally. So I like to do my own housework. I like to do my own gardening. I feel like the world is in a bit of trouble because we delegate everything, including our mental health. There's absolutely a time to seek help for everything and be medicated if you need it and all that kind of stuff. But I think there is a lot to be said about natural resilience and challenging it. So like I think like if I start to when I start to like delegate too much in my life, I lose touch with what's happening and I start to lose appreciation for things. So like I want to have a nice garden, but if I like let someone look after it, I don't really know what's fruiting, and then I come out and like all the fruit's been eaten because I didn't like remember to net it.
You're not like connected to it.
Not connected, yeah. I feel like there's this like deep connectivity that is in an old way of living that we're missing out on because it's just so much convenience in our lives that makes us really discombobulated, but we don't realize it. And I feel it's that dissonance that causes a lot of like mental health issues. So I think like even just hard yakka, like working in the garden is so good for you because it's like, oh my God, some people do this for a living. Like they have to, like when I go to the farmer's market, I see these like fruiterers that drive 3 hours from, you know, the Riverland to sell fruit for like hardly anything. And then fruit fly comes and they have to like get rid of all of it. And I'm just like, people work really hard. Some people have to work so hard for their money. And even little things like going to the supermarket and how we just want to just buy one segment of an animal. Like if we were taught, if it was legislated that we could only buy whole chickens, right?
I only buy whole cows. Yeah. I go into the butcher and I say, wait, I'll take the whole thing. It's a nightmare in getting into the boot, but yeah.
7 chest freezers. I think like there would be just way less wastage because you're not going to just cut the thighs off and just chuck the rest in the bin, right? I just think there's just like these holistic ways of thinking and doing things that we're kind of just deprived of now because of culture of convenience. And I'm totally implicating myself as well. I'm not saying that I'm outside of this. But do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know what you mean.
So the natural order, I feel like, there's always it never quite works out in the end. And
it's almost like don't take the shortcut or something.
Yeah. I think there always has to be a feeling of sacrifice and to give that act meaning. Otherwise, you'll come out the other end and something will not quite be right. It's just happened time and time again in my life.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Wow. I think it's for me with say cooking, for an example. Like there's the two aspects to it. That
Josh is very good, by the way.
I don't know about very good, but I'm not very good, but I love doing it.
Extremely
and
good.
Best cook in Australia.
But I'm thinking about the chicken example.
Yeah.
Of like when I learnt how to joint a chicken properly, suddenly every time I do it, I get a sense of, and that's like cutting it, portioning it from a whole chicken into all the bits.
Yeah.
There's a sense of like
mindfulness
and connection that I get, and also from what you were talking about earlier with the drama exam, also a notch of like, oh, I can do this. I can do a thing.
Yeah.
And it becomes a really rewarding experience.
Yeah.
That when I then go buy a whole lot of chicken thighs, I don't get that same amount of rewardness and connection to what I'm doing. It's something in the granularity of being specific with what I'm doing.
Yeah. And it's interesting because I feel like, you know, when you give people lots of choice, they don't actually end up being more grateful. They end up being less grateful. Because it just becomes like this transaction rather than this like meaningful thing. So when you see the whole bird, you're like a little bit more like, oh, that's a whole animal that's died for me. Whereas when you just get like a leg, it's less sort of connected to.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I guess, I just really went off course there. But that was part of the
I get it. I know what you mean.
Natural order of things.
Yeah.
And I feel like it connects you to everything. It's like capillaric. It just, you know, once you start thinking like that, it just goes everywhere.
Yeah. What does it? Say that word again.
Capillaric.
Like capillaries?
Like capillaries. So it just keeps spreading like tiny and tiny further out.
I'll use that in an interview sometime.
Yeah, it's good.
I might have made it up. I don't even know if it's a word.
I'll use it anyway.
It's a great visual. It works for me.
It does.
Yeah.
So what was the timeline like then? You mentioned that you met Matt at the church
Yeah.
and then you were together for 10 years.
10 years, yeah.
What was the timeline like? Was in joining the church and then leaving the church? And
So I joined the church when I was, I think, 16, and then got married at 24, and that's when we left the church together.
what did you see in the church when you were 16 that drew you towards it?
I think I was just such a shy kid. I liked because I was at that age where I sort of was interested in boys, and like the prospect of going into like the normal world seemed really scary to me. And in the church, there's all these like really strict rules about like no sex before marriage and blah, blah, blah. So I just felt like very safe.
A safe way to interact with boys.
Moral-wise, yeah.
that's
So
interesting.
like with the morality of the church, I just felt like it was just this sort of, really safe environment for me to do that in, and that really appealed to me. And also it was just such a wholesome environment that I had never really – I guess I'd always yearned to be part of a community, you know, feeling that, like I told you, I just always felt a little bit like, you know, on the outside. And it was just such a welcoming have you seen the South Park episode
The Mormon.
of when Kyle gets fellowshipped? It is so that. Like
Really?
you just feel so like, oh my God, what's going on? This is amazing. Everyone's so beautiful.
Yeah,
Like you really
yeah.
feel that.
Accepted.
Yeah. And it's just so it's just so wholesome, you know. So that really appealed to me.
Yeah, of course. That sounds great.
Yeah. And I think because we didn't have that kind of family, which was like everyone's very cuddly, and it's just like this, it was just sort of a very sitcom version of families in my head that I saw around me.
And so then conversely, obviously you met Matt and then you both left. Is it because you're like, oh, okay, well, I met someone.
I don't need the dating service anymore.
No, it's because before I met him, I went traveling. I actually went to Utah to essentially look for a husband when I was 19.
When Utah is like a lot of Mormons live in Utah.
Yeah. It's like the Mormon capital of the world.
Yeah.
Ended up going to Canada, and then it was like I landed. My first best friend was trans. It was like my world just got turned on its head like within a second.
Yeah.
And suddenly my everything was seen through a different lens. And I was already a bit that way inclined because I have I love people and I love stories, and I just love like mixing with people from all different walks of life. So Canada was just like this, you know, like a candy shop for me. It was just, it's so multicultural, you know what I mean? Like where I worked, there was like, I had Chinese friends from Pakistan who had like full Indian accents, and like Jamaican friends that had like Chinese backgrounds. Like it was just such a mixed bag.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, so that just completely flipped my world on its head. And because Arnie was like so kind to me, she protected me. She just, took me under her wing. And I was like, how can I reject this? This is ridiculous. I'm not rejecting it. So when I came back, I was just in such a...
And to reject it would be more in line with the church. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then I came home and I met Matt, and we had all these similar grievances about the church, like the doctrine and how stiff it was and we were both in the arts. So it was like our brains were just getting more and more opened, you know, and we just couldn't accept it anymore. So we decided to leave the church together. Yeah.
Wow.
Do you mind me asking you, and we don't have to go here if you don't want to, but you'd mentioned that not having kids.
Yeah.
Is kids something that you had thought about? Like, is this a conscious decision you've decided, or like something you've worked on? Okay.
Yeah, ish. So Matt and I always thought no kids because we could sense that the volatility was unstable. And then Jono really wanted kids.
So Jono's your second husband?
Yes, second husband.
Right. Yeah.
And I wasn't sure at the time because I was sort of starting to creep into early 40s. I was starting to get a little bit worried because it was my first go at it.
Yeah.
And the sort of risk climb if it's your first child and older. Like if it's your second child and older, for some reason the cogs are already a little bit oiled and your body is more receptive.
Yeah.
So and I did accidentally get pregnant, but then I lost the baby exactly on the 12-week mark.
Oh God.
Yeah.
So sorry.
And thank you. I just did my thing. just did my thing. I like just processed it head on,
Mm.
and never got pregnant again. But I do feel like I feel really thankful that I went through that, even though it was harrowing at the time. Like I have so much gratitude that I still got to feel what it was like to have a baby in me, and because I had to actually go through a full labour when I lost it.
At 12 weeks.
Yeah, it was pretty full on. And yeah, I'm really grateful that I still went through that process because I know what that feels like. And for a while I was really obsessed with getting pregnant again, but then it just never really happened.
Yeah.
And then we started to feel a bit of like the relationship was a bit not
It wasn't working.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, we didn't really, because it wasn't sort of a volatile one like Matt's. John and I had like sort of a gentle relationship. It's just more we realised that we were fundamentally really different people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it was one of those situations of, I don't know if any of you have watched the movie Closer, but there is this really profound phrase in it. And a character in it says, sometimes love just isn't enough. And it was like, we loved each other so much, but it was just all these differences and we'd just let them fester to a point of no return. But I've just always thought, I feel like there's sort of other joys to be had as well.
Yeah, of course.
That I think for some women, this calling is very, very strong. Like it's like their end state, you know. But it changed for me over time. I did think it early on in life, but then as I got older, it's like the reality of it started to kick in. And also I think when you have art or the ability to create, that kind of becomes a companion in itself. So I think there's a lot of stuff there that I can displace, like having a child into, because it's like creating, but it's just into a different sort of vessel in a way. Yeah. But I also have lots of kids that are in my life that are like in their 20s that I mentor and adore, and that I kind of get to have that maternal kind of like venting on.
Auntie Kim.
Yeah.
It's amazing what like the body does and can do. Like it is like whenever someone gets pregnant and then whether they have the baby or they don't, or I always think like this is like the most natural. This happens all the time, but it is
miraculous,
unbelievable.
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
Yeah.
It is so wild.
It is absolutely wild.
So having gone through, even though I know obviously it's a harrowing ending and like such a traumatic experience, I'm sure, how did it affect the way that you, I don't know, felt about your own body and what it's capable of, or what, I don't know, like I feel like that would be...
Especially when you talked about body image issues earlier
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah. It's so weird because when I look back to when it was probably the worst, I was like a little stick. I was like so skinny. And but yeah, I don't actually know if it affected my body. What's affected my body image is less the pregnancy. I was amazed at, you know, what it did. But also, but I think what's affected it the most is just age, just coming of age. And it takes so long for girls. It's that makes me really sad how long it takes girls to accept their bodies. And it's taken me like till now. It's only been in the last like maybe 3 years where I'm like, nah, I'm good.
Yeah.
Like I like myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I'm good. Like I like my body, you know. But it's taken me
It's so sad that you've lived so much of your life not like that. Yeah.
half a century, and it's like only when it's starting to fall apart you're like, oh, I'm good. It's so stupid.
Yeah.
Only then you recognise it when it was like amazing.
God, how great to get to that place.
It's so ironic.
Yeah.
I always have the feeling when I look back at when I have photos have been taken of me throughout my life of going like, I did not want to look at that photo because I hate the way my body is. Then I look at it and it was fine. What was I stressed about? But I can only ever have that compassion retrospectively. Like I still wouldn't want to look at a photo of myself taken today.
Yeah.
But 6 months ago, a year ago,
Yeah.
I'll be like, oh, I was actually okay. I didn't need to worry.
Yeah.
So I feel, I don't know, I don't know what's going on there. But
Yeah.
it spoke, your thing about it only being able to appreciate when it starts to fall apart totally makes sense to me.
Yeah, it's so silly. But I have to say, I've loved all the stuff that you guys have covered on like men going through that, because I think we girls always think it's just like a female scourge, but guys just don't talk about it.
Yeah, yeah, and there's not as much pressure on.
Yeah, you just
us,
suck
I
it
guess.
up and just like pretend it's all cool, but you're not.
Oh, definitely. It's like it's such a strange. You sort of feel like you're not really meant to worry about it or care about it. But like for me, like I've never had like really serious body image issues where it like plagues me too much. But having said that, I still do have, like, if I'm looking good for what I consider to be good, I definitely have more confidence than if I'm in a place where I'm like, oh, I don't like my body at the moment. It definitely affects my confidence.
We've talked a lot on the podcast about seasons and chapters in people's lives, and I feel like you've got such clear seasons that you've sort of almost stepped through in your life, or it may not feel like that to you, but just as we listen to your story, there's, you know, with being a Mormon or your different relationships or different career, it feels like to me, with you're about to take on the judge role in MasterChef, it's like a new season potentially is about to start.
Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah. Yes.
Well, I think when this airs, we'll be in the season.
Okay.
No, we're in it now.
Yeah.
We're in it.
Oh,
okay,
yeah.
we're in it now.
Yeah.
So my question before I get to that is just, this all started for you when, I'm trying to do the math in my head, you would have been 34 when MasterChef.
35.
35 when you were first appeared as auditioning for MasterChef.
Yeah.
So much has happened in your life since then.
I know.
I'm just wondering if there's anything, that sounds a little bit like a cliche question. I guess it is, but what would you say to that 35-year-old version of yourself looking back?
Do you know what? This question is asked of me quite a bit, like even like your younger self, you know, whether you're a teenager. I would say nothing, because I feel like what I really appreciate about my life is I've really listened to my gut, and it's gotten me everywhere I've wanted to go. And I love all the mistakes I've made. I honestly do, because I just feel you learn so much more from your mistakes than your successes. Honestly, the successes are like, they evaporate so quickly, that feeling, that top of the mountain feeling, don't you think?
Absolutely.
It's not anything to really value. It is absolutely about the climb. And I think when you become dead inside, and it is when you don't have that feeling of wanting to climb. Yeah, I'm so about the climb.
So my final question to you is, what is your gut telling you about your life at the moment?
I don't know. I never have any idea where it's going. I've never had it. I told you I magooed my way here. That's in the first sentence. Yeah, I kind of just feel like I'm very open. I think that's why I've had an interesting life. I've just been open to experiences. That's what I'm greedy for, is more life experiences than anything else.
Poh, thank you so much. This has been just so much fun and just so much wisdom coming from this conversation. So thank you for joining us today.
Oh, goodness, guys. It's been such a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks, Poh.
Thank you.
That is what's cooking.
Yeah.
That's what's cooking. You know what I mean?
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cooked.
Yeah.
She was cooking that. You know, there's like a saying in basketball now, like someone's playing well, they're cooking.
Oh, they're cooking.
She was cooking that whole episode. Not literally, but basketball-wise.
She's brilliant. What a love. I think I've maybe met her very briefly, but I've never actually sat down with her, particularly not recorded. She's such a lovely, lovely person.
Yeah.
And wise. So wise.
She is, yeah. And I just seeing the way she interacted with everyone that was on this project afterwards, because everyone wanted to meet her afterwards. She had so much time for them. She was so much fun, and yeah, she's great.
Yeah.
Can I very quickly, before we go to our learning, can I tell you the phrase I'd like to bring back without judgment?
Oh, I'm so glad we're not waiting till the end of the episode.
Yeah.
No.
I mean, this is unprofessional to not tease to the end of the episode, but yeah, go on.
So it's more a practical thing. It's not a crazy saying. I would just like, in my life, there's quite often I don't know if we're going to go for a high five or a fist pump with someone. Like,
Of course.
especially after running, when you run a group of people, there's often they want to do a high five, but it takes someone's got to lead it and go very confidently with it.
Yeah.
It could be, I do a bit of work with footballers. They often want to do that kind of stuff, but I don't know when. I would like to just be able to say to people, you guys as well, if we do a good episode, I'd like to be able to say, stick it to me. And when I say stick it to me,
I was not expecting it to be that.
Stick it to me.
so if I say stick it to me, that means we're going to dab each other up, or we're going to like.
I'd be careful where you say that.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh, it has like sexual undertone, do you reckon?
Well,
Stick it to. Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, I see that.
but it could also be stick it to me as in. So stick it to me. You're asking them to lead the handshake.
Let's
or
just
high
do it. No, we
five
can do
or-
it together. Like, hey, stick it to me.
But does that still? But is that?
You don't
it's
even
still-
know what it means.
But it's still confusing. Like, are we high fiving or fist pumping?
Yeah.
Doesn't
it's-
it not
it's-
alleviate the
I think
confusion?
it's more just like, hey, heads up, we're about to do something.
I think what it is you're saying.
So ironically, it's a consent thing, but in a very
Well, you're
weird,
saying
in a very sexual way.
you're saying to people like you're going up to like a footy player or something, and you go, stick it to me,
Yeah.
and then they decide whether it's a high five or a fist
Yeah.
bump.
Yeah, stick it to me.
It's a bit of a status move as well. It's like I'm not doing shit. You stick it to me.
Oh, I don't want to come across like that. Maybe I need a more gentle, more polite way of saying it.
What would that be?
Would you please give me...
Would you please give me some stick?
Would you please give me some stick?
Would you please give me some stick? It's definitely be careful where you say that one.
Oh, they're doing
There are
work on it.
certain bars that if you went there on a Saturday night and said, "Can you please give me some stick?" Yes, Mr. Van Colenberg, please come this way. Why are you locking the door?
So, yeah,
Okay, yep,
that's-
stick it to me.
Okay, so Poh, there was so many things I thought we could maybe talk about. One of the things that I loved so very much was her ownership of decisions, that like making the wrong decision or and just she really owned those.
Yep, love that.
And I feel like a lot of the time we don't do that, or we find it hard to own our bad decisions. We all make bad decisions. That's part of we all make mistakes. But the way that she owned it, I found very, very powerful. And I think that's why it adds to the wisdom that she has, because she's happy to confront head on areas in her life where she's had a couple of decisions and she's looked back and realized it was the wrong path or the wrong decision she took. And I started reading a lot about that, because there's a lot online about how it's okay to make mistakes, it's okay to fail. But I'm really interested in like when the mistake is a decision, when you had a fork in the road and you look back at it and realize and it can set you back a long way. It could be a decision that you might look back and go, well, that was 10 years of my life, or that was 5 years of my life where I was heading in the wrong direction. And there are a few things that I wanted to distill from the reading that I did, which I found really fascinating. So there were 3 things really stood out to me. If you are thinking, I think I need to better own a poor decision I made in my past, the first thing that I read about was how we need to fully accept responsibility. And when you look back on a bad decision that you've made, if everyone's thinking about a bad decision they've made, you often imply a lot of other people in that decision at the time to make yourself feel less ordinary about your decision. You'll sort of blame other people. You'll go, well, that person said this would happen and that person said this. And also, and we kind of, in a way, we're kind of making excuses for our poor decision. But one of the things is we need to just fully accept responsibility and say, well, in the end, the decision was on me. There was no gun to my head. Like for me, I made this decision myself. And
It's a scary thing to do.
Yeah, it is. But to fully accept responsibility and to remove, like go back and look at all the excuses you made at the time, all the excuses are still lingering in that, and just go, well, cut them away, because by doing that, I'm not really fully accepting this. If I'm saying, well, that's that person's fault, that person made me say that person made me think this. We make choices, and they were so strong in this episode with Poh's, like decision making. She makes strong, quick decisions and she sticks by them. Yeah. But by implying other people in it, we kind of dilute that a little bit. So,
I feel like I do this not all the time, but I feel like a lot, particularly when it comes to creative decisions or any decisions that I've made or ideas that I've had that involve like a creative pursuit of some sort. If it then turns out to have not worked or it was the wrong idea and it was clearly my idea, I really struggle to admit that I made the wrong decision, because it's like I don't know if it's like an ego thing or an identity thing, but it's like that's like how I define myself to be, like one of my strengths, I guess, is like, oh no, but I'm good at that. I like to think I'm good at that. So to then make a mistake or do something wrong is like, oh no, maybe
all the other ones were bad.
I just don't want anyone to think that I'm bad at it or think that I'm so I struggle a lot. It makes me think, who's really good at it, and this is very specific to anyone who watches the NBA, Luka Doncic.
Yeah.
He, whenever they're just playing, when we're recording this, they're about to play the finals, Dallas Mavericks, and whenever they've lost, and if he hasn't played well in like the press conference, he's always he comes out and says like, I didn't do good enough.
Yeah.
Like
no excuses.
No excuses, just I didn't play well enough.
Yeah.
And not like, oh, we could do better as a team. It's all about him and the mistakes that he made.
Yeah. The second one is and I actually have done this before with the decision that I made as a 19, 20-year-old, that I had a lot of troubles reconciling myself, which was when, I think I've spoken about this before, I definitely haven't this podcast, but when Georgia was really sick, I made the decision to spend a lot of time at my then girlfriend's house. I was there all the time because it was really tough at home, and it was kind of like just such a happy place at my girlfriend's house, so I spent a lot of time there. And for a long time, I felt so much shame about that. I was like, I'm such a bad person. When my sister needed me, I just took off. And so for a long time, I felt really bad about that. But this next thing that I read about, well, kind of like the second step, I guess, is like having empathy for that version of yourself. So going back and looking at the decision you made, having a bit of empathy just to go, well, in that decision for me, it was really, really dark at home at points. And I had a girlfriend for the first time in my life, and I had a car, and it was so much fun there. It was hard at home. And so for a 19-year-old or 18-year-old, I think going back in time, I'd probably do the same thing again. Like I would just, it made sense at the time. Like it was just.
Isn't it that thing of like I forget where I've heard this, but we like sometimes apply what we know now to the version of ourselves when we're younger, unfairly.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And I think understanding that you did the best you could at the time with the information that you had is a helpful thing to think, to help you emphasize with the version of yourself that made that.
Yeah.
Because we can speak to ourselves in a really unkind way. We can kind of be like, you're an idiot. Like, what were you thinking? How have you done that?
Yeah.
But that's not an overly kind, we need to be empathetic with ourselves and go, well, if you actually think about everything that was going on in your life at that point, I can empathize with why you made that decision. Yeah. I understand. And the third one is making sure that you use whatever the experience is, like you commit it to using it as a learning curve. Like whatever happened there, whatever the error was, whatever the decision was, don't let it be for no reason. Like that happened, and that happening is going to make sure in the future I don't make a similar mistake, or I don't go down the same path, or I spend more time, whatever it is. Like if you rush the decision and you made the wrong decision, well, next time I got a big decision, I will take my time with this. Just making sure that it informs you and helps you to become a better person in the future. With the situation with Georgia, I have very strongly front of mind if I'm not sure about something. It could be something as small as like, am I going to spend time with the kids this morning, or am I going to train, or whatever it is? It's like, if you're unsure, put the time into family. And it's always pops up for me.
God, I've been thinking about this a lot recently, which is that when you have the realization of like you made the mistake and you're like, oh, okay, this, you can kind of be self-analytical and reflective on like the thing that you did wrong or the bad decision you make. And I feel like I'm getting really good, and maybe because of this podcast, I'm getting really good at acknowledging the things that I've done wrong. What I struggle with is to then not do it again.
Yeah. Right.
Oh yeah.
I'm very good at like being able to go like, oh, this is the according to this book or this expert that we spoke to, this is the thing I did wrong, or this is the issue I have. But to put it into practice, to like walk the walk, that's what with a few things in my life, that's what I find really, really tough. But that's where that's when I do start feeling kind of shameful about it. because I'm no longer the person who doesn't know better, because I do know better now.
But you still do this.
But I'm still still making the same mistakes.
Yeah.
That's tough.
Yeah.
Really hard. I think I'm an incredibly indecisive person, and it's like one of the things one of the qualities about myself I don't like very much. And I think it is paralysis by the thought of making the wrong decision on a lot of things for a lot of my life. And I'm trying to get better at accepting that I'm going to make lots of bad decisions, and that's okay, or bad choices. And that's okay, and that it doesn't mean I'm a bad person if I do that, or an idiot, or trying to sort of distance myself from the decision. But also, I think there's something to be done utilizing those three things that you said. I think I also need to get better at reframing the feeling that I incurred if I've made a bad decision, that sort of feeling of being an idiot or whatever it is. Not necessarily seeing that as purely a negative in the framework of, I guess it doesn't really speak to what you said just then, Ryan, but how do I change to move towards the person I want to be more?
Yeah.
And if I didn't make this bad decision, that I wouldn't be confronted with the fact that I've done something that I'm not happy with, or that doesn't align with the person I want to be, or something like that. So here's an opportunity for me to sit in that feeling, acknowledge it, and use that emotion, not like a beating myself up. So do it with empathy and a sense of compassion. But it's a piece of data that I need to take on board and think on and move towards being the person I want to be.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, rather than proof that I'm as bad a person as I suspect I might be.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I guess in summary, it's 100% owning the decision that you made. That you made the decision, and the second step is realizing that it was your decision. However, you did the best you could with the information you had at the time, and having an empathetic lens on it, and then making sure that whatever happened, you're going to use that to help you to be a better person in future, or to make better decisions in future.
Perfect.
Well, she was just an absolute delight, and we took so much from that. So thank you, Poh, for joining us. And
Thanks, Poh.
you can see her on MasterChef as one of the main judges if you would like more Poh. Okay, see you later.
Bye.
Bye.